We'll start the meeting. Good evening. It's April 25th of 2023. This is the Stoughton City Council meeting, and the first order of business is the roll call.
Okay, Jensen.
Here.
Lagaki.
Here.
Mayeski.
Here.
Reeves.
Here.
Lucky.
He's absent and
Schumacher.
excused.
Yeah.
Here.
Oh, thank you. Venegas. Here. Sikalski. Oh, I'm sorry, wrong name here. Caravello.
Here.
Payton.
Here.
Hiley.
Here.
Hirsch.
Here.
Okay. Oh, and Raff. Excuse me. He's absent. I have 10 alders present.
All right, thank you. We are certified of compliance with open meeting laws, so that would take us to public comment. We have a number of people signed up to speak tonight. The first person is Todd. Come on up. Make sure you adjust your microphone there, and you can just give your name and address, and we just ask if you can keep your comments to about 3 minutes or less, please.
I'm going to read them, and it takes me 2 minutes and 47 seconds. So.
All right.
My name is Todd Hubing. I live at 119 North Page Street. I'm the current chair of the Stoughton Landmarks Commission, but I'm here today as a downtown building owner. My wife and I purchased the building at 129 East Main in 2016. We invested a significant amount of money renovating the interior and the exterior of the building. As a non-contributing building in the Design Overlay District, building permits were approved by the Plan Commission. I only became aware of the existence of the Landmarks Commission by chance when I was trying to locate some historic photos. I went to a scheduled meeting where I met Peggy Varigan. I told Peggy about our renovation work. She looked up the building online and told me that we were probably eligible for state and federal historic tax credits. Over the next few weeks, she guided us through the process of getting the building listed as contributing to the National Historic Register District. Ultimately, we received over $100,000 from state and federal sources that allowed us to renovate the entire building, including new electrical service, new plumbing, new heating and air conditioning, a new roof. We were also able to convert an empty and dilapidated second-floor apartment into a modern, luxurious space that we now rent to traveling nurses. These new tenants have relatively high incomes and do much of their shopping and dining in downtown Stoughton. In the past 7 years, I've witnessed countless examples of building owners who have benefited from design expertise and financial help provided by the Landmarks Commission. Not once in that time has the Commission prevented anybody from renovating their building. Not once in that time has the Commission required expensive materials or repairs. In fact, often the Commission provides advice that significantly reduces the cost of a proposed renovation. At the April 14 Coffee with the Mayor, using Broodminder Building as an example, it was stated that the Plan Commission would simply approve a renovation, whereas the Landmarks Commission would, quote, obviously, unquote, want to remove the existing siding to reveal the original materials. This is wrong on 2 accounts. First, the Landmarks Commission would never require the removal of an existing building feature, even if it were covering up an historic feature. But more importantly, the Broodminder Building is a local landmark. Its recent renovation was approved by the Landmarks Commission. Not only did the Landmarks Commission quickly approve the work, they helped the owners to save a little money by pointing out an unnecessary expense in the proposed plan. The Plan Commission plays an essential role in our city's governance, but they are not experts in historic building repairs, maintenance, or remodeling. The 46 historic buildings downtown that are not currently local landmarks deserve the same access to professional advice and financial assistance that the 16 downtown local landmarks have enjoyed for years.
Thank you. Next speaker is Michael Engelberger.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mike Engelberger, 1101 Giles Street. Also a member of the Dane County Board of Supervisors, former member of this City Council, served on a lot of different committees, including RDA, Plan Commission. One time I chaired the Housing Commission. I've been in construction for 44 years and pretty much understand construction. I'm a big advocate of historic preservation, big advocate of our historic downtown, also our either 4 or 5 residential historic districts, one of them which I'm in, and I have a historic home that I've been doing some restoration of, getting credits, state tax credits. As far as your ordinance, what's your ordinance number 013-2023, I would definitely recommend that you approve this at your second reading in a couple weeks. There's not a lot of changes other than the body that will be approving the historic district will be the Landmarks Commission, which are basically experts in landmark preservation. That's one of the things we need to do is preserve our historic downtown. This city has a few different things that are really special. One is the Opera House. We have a nice hospital here that a lot of communities don't have. Another thing we have is a historic downtown that really isn't duplicated, at least in Dane County here. So I would really recommend that you approve this. It's a no-brainer as far as building owners in this situation are going to be able to use the tax credits up to 40% for certain items, which includes just about everything on the outside of the building, structural improvements. It also includes HVAC, electrical, plumbing, big-time credits for remodeling your buildings as a building owner. Any building owner that wouldn't take advantage of that, I think I would try to figure out why that would be. So I just want to encourage you to move this forward. There was one thing that I wanted to say about the makeup of the committee that approves this. I've heard that, because there's only one council member on the landmarks, and there's 3 members on the Plan Commission, that, there should either be more council members on the landmarks. But the thing is, landmarks only is going to be doing this downtown district. It's only a handful of buildings comparatively to what the Plan Commission deals with citywide and with the overall plan of the developments of the city. So I would encourage you to pass this ordinance when it comes up in a couple weeks. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Joanne.
Hello. Thank you for the opportunity to talk. I'm Joanne Grassman. I'm the owner of Grand Inspired Gallery and Makerspace, and speaking tonight as the Vice President and Secretary of the Stoughton Downtown Merchants Association. The SDMA, one of our objectives is to celebrate downtown historic beauty, as we see that it's a vital contributing factor to making the downtown experience one that people will come for. There's really very few cities, as you've heard before, that can boast what Stoughton has. The historic buildings, the unique shops and venues, they're key to keeping Stoughton a community with a heart, with a soul, not just another cookie-cutter suburban bedroom community. So the SDMA is generally in favor of policies and structures that can support the maintenance of a historic downtown. As someone who recently took on the task of restoring an historic building, I can attest that building owners need all the support that they can get in keeping these old structures healthy and functioning and vibrant places to be. That is, a part of that is having a streamlined, consistent process for permissions, permitting, for advice that's managed by knowledgeable people as a part of that support. There's a lot of different places that people sometimes need to go in order to get permits, to know what's historic, what's not historic. Having one knowledgeable body is really key to making that process efficient for people who are in that restoration process. So we do support the proposal to create the Downtown Historic District. We would, however, like the council to consider discussing an amendment that would be for the Downtown Historic District proposal to further increase consistency across departments and to preserve the historic character and appearance of the downtown. And as I understand the proposal, and I won't admit to being an expert on it, we would like to see if there is new construction within the downtown, either as infill or as replacements for buildings that may get damaged. We know there can be fires, et cetera, from time to time. That there is also some oversight for those, for either remodeling of contributing buildings, or when there needs to be new construction made, again, either as infill or as a replacement for a building that's been damaged by fire or natural disaster, et cetera. So that the appearance of any new kind of construction and or remodeling blends with the current historic buildings and contributes positively to that downtown historic feel that we have right now. We'd also ask that boundaries are consistent, that there's consistency created across various districts. So right now, we have the Arts and Entertainment District in Stoughton extends from Page Street, and includes all of the Depot Hill Historic District that extends up to the Youth Center. The proposed district would split the Depot Hill District, which currently goes and includes, was Laz Bistro, and again goes all the way to the Youth Center. The proposed district goes to 7th Street, which is kind of right in the middle of that. And so I wonder about that and why buildings on the other side of 7th Street aren't included. There's 6 historical attractions listed on the Stoughton Visitors website. None of them are contained within the new boundary, which I found kind of interesting. The Stoughton Downtown Merchants Association, our boundaries go from Page Street to the railroad tracks, similar to the Depot Hill District. So there's a number of buildings that would be excluded in the new boundary, including the Laguerre Building, Able Contemporary Gallery, both of the depots next to the railroad tracks, and again that splits that Depot Hill Historic District, and I'm not sure what would become of the leftover Depot Hill District. On the west side, it excludes the buildings that house Smokes on the Water, Olson's, HSM Heating Systems, Yahara Chocolate, the Senior Center, and those buildings are very similar to the ones on the west side of the river that contain Shannon's Hair Care and the new Norwegian Art Gallery. Upstairs, living quarters, downstairs, retail, the kind of style that I can't claim to be an expert on the style, but the style of building is very similar there on the buildings that are excluded to buildings that are included in the district. And so we would ask that the council consider a discussion about extending the boundaries of the downtown historic district to include up to Page Street on the west and up to either the railroad tracks or including the youth building on the east side. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Cheryl.
My name is Cheryl Learn. I live at 1108 First Seth Road in Stoughton. As a longtime resident of Stoughton and a former member of the Landmarks Commission, I am here to support the ordinance establishing a local historic downtown district. It's important to keep a city's history alive and to preserve buildings that are part of that history. The Landmarks Commission has done this by landmarking individual buildings and creating historic districts throughout Stoughton. Our historic downtown is a real boon to Stoughton. This is the most visible part of Stoughton to tourists and visitors. I saw this during my 15 years as a volunteer usher coordinator for Stoughton Opera House. Many people were in awe of the preservation done on the Opera House and would also comment on our downtown and how some of the nice older buildings looked that had already been had restoration work done. It's time to create a local historic district for our downtown. The only way to develop this district with uniformity and historical integrity is to have one commission in charge. That commission should be the Landmarks Commission. They have the knowledge and the expertise on best restoration and preservation methods and can assist owners with advice, resources, and how to access available financial help. I urge you to pass this ordinance. Not to do so would be really short-sighted on your part. Thank you.
Thank you. Next would be Joseph.
Hello, my name is Joe Cabibo. I've lived for 47 years across the street at the 404 South 5th Street in the OK Rowie House. In about 1984, it was the first privately owned home in Stoughton to be placed on the National Register of Historic Homes. For a short while, I was on the City Council and was a member of the Landmarks Commission when it was first formed here in Stoughton. You might say I have a bit of experience dealing with the commission, both as a member and as an owner of a historic home, dealing with the Landmarks Commission rules and procedures. My wife and I have also received a few mini grants from the Landmark Commission to help pay for restoration work on our home. I understand there is a proposal to create a downtown historic district with the Landmark Commission in charge of guiding work in that district, and I understand there is some opposition to that proposal. There was also opposition when the Landmark Commission was formed, and it's centered around some of the same issues that have been presented now. Who will have control? Will owners be forced to make expensive repairs? It is my property, and nobody should be able to tell me what to do with it. These are all false issues. They do not reflect what the Landmark Commission really does. The Landmark Commission has the expertise, to advise and guide owners in repairing historic properties so that they can keep their historic character. In doing so, they make repairs eligible for tax credits and may make them eligible for mini grants to help pay for the repairs. Instead of being concerned about control that is being potentially lost, property owners should be thankful that help is available to assist them in saving money and increase the value of their properties. I urge you to create the Downtown Historic District and allow the Landmark Commission to expand their role in helping owners of their historic properties. They have the expertise. Let them do the job. Thank you.
Jordan?
All this positive, and someone, I guess, has to come and rain on the parade. So, for those that don't know me, my name's Jordan Tilson, 384 East Main Street, right across from the Opera House. So I own several buildings in downtown. I think I'm up to 4 right now. Wow! And I am here again to speak against this unnecessary extension of government. So, this group talks about nonsense, and we don't know, and I'm not an expert. I own 4 buildings, and I'm not an expert on my own buildings. There's a reason I don't own any historical buildings is because of the extra things that this committee holds against it and that control that they have over people. So I understand that it's important. There is already a downtown overlay district that they have that has those certain rules to go with it. Talking about, what was that term that you guys haven't denied anything? They've denied multiple things that I've brought to the Planning Commission, and they write letters and say, we don't like this and please stop it. That's still denial, one way or another. Hindsight, and we have to do this. I don't own historical buildings. Historical building already, right? Historical building? Who else owns buildings? Talk to these guys. We kind of get where it is. They all already own historical buildings. I don't buy historical buildings for that reason, for those extra tasks that they have. What it really comes down to is this group takes control from an area that already has control of that. They're going to change the rules. Costs will go up, which will probably take the one area of Stoughton that is still affordable housing and increase those costs, because I will have to increase those costs because of the control that they take. So I know when I say that, I speak on behalf of Matt Heitman and several other landowners. I mean, there are a few of us that own quite large chunks of this. I also recommend that you find that survey that this group put forward about 2 years ago. And they put it out for the whole city. And there was a huge, very large dissent against it, that the majority of the public said, no, we don't want this, and spoke out. And that survey has mysteriously disappeared. And now here we are 2 years later trying to redo this again. So I urge this committee to please keep it with the Planning Commission. It is already in place. This is unnecessary to continue moving forward. And there's already a downtown overlay district with rules that we all have to follow that are beyond what everyone else has. So I thank this committee for their time.
All right, next up is Eric.
Hi, everybody. Eric Frankson, 327 East Washington Street, landmark home also known as the Dragon House. I'm speaking today as both a neighbor to downtown and a landmarks owner. My wife and I, when looking for communities to settle into around Madison, had a lot of choices, but I will say again, as a neighbor, the downtown, its beauty, its historic relevance, its walkability, were all major factors. And I know a lot of other young families and individuals make choices along those values as well. It's a differentiator, and I'm very proud of it. Secondly, as a landmarks owner, about 9 years ago, we bought the Dragon House out of foreclosure. She was in need of some love, and we quickly became familiar with Peggy, Todd, and several others from the Landmarks Commission who were absolutely an asset in that process. Not only did they help us connect with experts who knew how to take care of these old homes, but also helped us with the mini grant program that Stoughton offers and other grants and tax credits that have made a lot of the restorations for this historic home possible. If you look at it now, I hope you appreciate it. We've restored it top to bottom in the exterior. The interior is still a work in progress, but none of that work would have been made possible without the support of the Landmarks Commission. Thank you.
Thank you. Tyler?
Ahoy! First time for everything, I suppose. I've been coming to quite a number of meetings since I moved to Stoughton not too long ago, but have never felt particularly inclined to get up and speak about any particular issue, just learning more and more about the area. I'd like to speak first on what I originally decided to speak about today, and that actually, to bring us a bit off track, is about the library. It's something that I would just love to brag about very briefly. As a new resident of Stoughton and as a younger member of the community, I do pride myself on being my father-in-law's speed dial whenever he has a technology problem, but I do still read paper books and I read the news for a living. I have the Stoughton Courier Hub delivered to my house every Thursday. Love it, read it, enjoy it. And I have been thoroughly impressed with the way that the local library has been run. And I've had the honor and the pleasure, thanks to Stoughton's open meeting laws, of attending a pair of the library board meetings where Jim Ramsey spoke on a lot of the successes of the library. And I've been very impressed to see that, the library, though it operates on a rather, thin budget, just as many libraries do this day and age, came very close to meeting their goals, and they still provide quite a lot of services to the community that I utilize, my fiance utilizes. And so I'd just kind of like to keep that top of mind for this council as you move into next year and all the years following. Just know that even young people like me do still use the library very heavily. It has a very wonderful teen program, I understand, that brings a lot of benefits to the community. And so I would love to see that continue to thrive, which will be made easier by a proper budget. So thank you for keeping that in mind. I do not own any buildings. I'm 28 years old. I don't own a building, let alone a historical building. However, I am a recent resident. I do live down on 409 South 4th Street. I know I should have mentioned that at the top of my comments today. I'm actually, Mr. Kabibo, I am one of your close neighbors. It's a wonderful building to view. It's a wonderful building to see. And one of the many reasons why I moved to Stoughton so recently was its character. And a lot of the historical buildings that are here. It's a beautiful place to see. It's a beautiful place to be. And this is something that I didn't plan on speaking on here tonight, but since we're on the topic, I love the historical quality of the downtown area. It's a wonderful place to walk on my lunch breaks, and I would love to see a historical district created to help preserve that and bring knowledge and resources to the historical building owners that are here. And if I may be so bold as to say, if you are lucky enough to own a building downtown, but are not able to keep up with the laws and ordinances that Stoughton has passed for whatever reason, then maybe you shouldn't own a building in Stoughton. And this is something that, as a non-building owner, but a resident of Stoughton, I can say I am in favor of. So take those comments, and I look forward to hearing the rest of the meeting. Thank you.
All right, that's all we had signed up for this evening. Is there anyone else that would wish to speak that hasn't spoken? Okay, hearing none, we'll go into our regular meeting. The first item is communications and presentations. Are there any communications from city council members tonight? All right, hearing none. We'll go into the presentations, and the presentation is going to be, Peggy, you're going to do the presentation from Landmarks. Oh, you have help.
Yeah, we're a pair.
You're a pair, okay.
Yep. So, good evening, everyone.
I don't think so.
My name is Peggy Varigan. I'm a member of the Landmarks Commission.
And I'm Alan Hitstrom. I'm also a member of the Landmarks Commission.
And Alan is a local historian, a community advocate, preservation expert, member of the Landmarks Commission for over 35 years. Many of you don't know me, so by way of introduction, I've been a member of the Commission for about 10 years. I've served as chair. I have a master's degree in historic preservation, have worked in the field for over 20 years, worked for a preservation architect. I currently serve on the governor-appointed State Historic Preservation Review Board. And it's been a pleasure to volunteer in this community. It's a special place. The Landmarks Commission has for many years discussed potential for creating a downtown local district. Over time, support from council members increased, giving us encouragement to the Commission to pursue the project, along with feedback such as from building owners on Main Street pointing out that currently there are two sets of rules to govern our historic downtown, and everyone should be on a level playing field. Our project to pursue a local district was delayed when the city paused our project to address deficiency in the downtown overlay zoning ordinance at that time. This was about 2019. The overlay ordinance was updated. This decision was made not to discard the local district project, but it was prioritized due to time constraints.
it was decided that between the two paths, local landmarking of the district and updating the existing overlay ordinance, the update to the overlay should come first because there was a pressing question to be resolved about demolition that couldn't wait for the local district to be completed. In late 2019, the Landmarks Commission presented our plan to City Council for pursuing a landmark district on Main Street, and our project was unanimously supported. We received funding to pursue a two-part project, public outreach and a district nomination. We put in a lot of work. We talked with building owners and community members, and we're here to present our findings. The Commission would like to thank Mayor Swadley and City Council, the Planning Department, for all of your support and assistance. The Commission also thanks members of the public for participating with us on this project. So there's quite a lot of misinformation being discussed about us, and it's our hope that we can clarify some of these points. The Landmarks Commission is pursuing this historic district because, in short, it is our job. We are bound by Stoughton's Landmarks Ordinance to accomplish the protection, enhancement, and perpetuation of such improvements and districts which reflect elements of the city's cultural, social, economic, political, and architectural history, and safeguard the city's historic and cultural heritage as embodied in our landmarks and historic districts. Simply, it is the responsibility as Commission members to execute the goals outlined in Stoughton's Landmarks Ordinance. Next slide, please. Currently, buildings in our historic downtown are subject to two sets of rules. A local district would level the playing field and ensure everyone is following the same rules. We have heard the question, why fix what isn't broken? But our perspective is that it is broken. There are two sets of rules for our historic downtown, causing confusion among property owners, and we would like to remedy that. You heard some of that tonight, in fact. All of our next slide, please. All of our projects have been presented to City Council and unanimously funded except one. And that's our new design guidelines, which were actually paid for through a certified local government grant that we received from the State Historic Preservation Office that paid 100% of the project cost. Next slide, please.
Already got a new mouse today.
We hired a preservation firm to study our downtown for us, and their results showed that our historic downtown meets 3 designation criteria of our ordinance. Eligibility as a local district only requires 1 criterion to be met. Our historic downtown meets 3. Based on these findings, a nomination was then prepared. Next slide, please. As I've already mentioned, we now have updated design guidelines. I think there's, yeah. There we go. There we go. We now have updated design guidelines. Stoughton had design guidelines that were about 30 years old, so it was important we update them to current standards. The design guidelines follow National Park Service best practices, common sense principles to assist in the long-term preservation of our irreplaceable historic community assets. While the Secretary of the Interior's standards provides guidance for both exterior and interior restoration and repair, the Landmarks Commission does not review interior work. Next slide, please. All projects that require city review will play by the same rules. It levels the playing field, reduces confusion over who reviews what. Local districts protect the investments of owners of historic properties. So currently we have the Downtown Design Overlay Zone Ordinance that the Plan Commission reviews and the Landmarks Ordinance that the Landmarks Commission reviews. While the current zoning overlay for Main Street has been strengthened to reduce demolitions, which is great. It primarily reviews appearance. Original materials and features can be demolished and replaced with modern materials. Local landmark review protects historic design, features, and materials. It's important to note that this review is a collaborative process with building owners. We want to help owners have the best project that meets their needs while also retaining and preserving historic design, features, and materials. The Landmarks Commission has a track record of helping property owners save money on their projects by suggesting repair, which can be less expensive than removal, and replacement with new material. And this also keeps historic building materials out of the landfill. Next slide, please. Historic districts assign a label to each building structure or feature. It is either contributing or it is non-contributing. Historic districts are significant because they embody the history of our community, architecture, and commerce, for example. Contributing buildings are from that historic period and are a physical representation of that significant history. Non-contributing buildings do not contribute to that history, usually because they are newer and do not date from the historic period. With non-contributing buildings, there's no requirement for the building to be altered to look historic. In fact, this is discouraged because that's what is called false history. False history is deceptive. It tricks the viewer into thinking they are looking at a historic building when they are not. And this violates preservation principles and best practices. To address another point of misinformation, the Landmarks Commission only reviews the work for which a permit is being requested. We would never dictate that an owner remove a facade slipcover just because that slipcover is hiding an historic facade. If an owner comes in for a permit for a new roof, we review the roof. We don't say, oh, by the way, you also need to repoint the brick on your facade.
Might have to raise this up a little bit. So now it's my turn. And we're on the next slide, please. Yeah, frequently asked questions. We also have a downtown design overlay district. Isn't that sufficient? Well, the current process for design review downtown is not consistent and is a bit confusing, as Peggy was saying. There's 2 city commissions that review proposed design changes to building exteriors, the Landmarks Commission and the Plan Commission. Buildings are either historic, not historic, or historic landmarks. So exterior design changes currently to the 14 local landmarks that are reviewed by the Landmarks Commission. The Plan Commission applies design standards found in Section 78517 of the City Municipal Code. These standards do not make a distinction between historic and non-historic buildings. On the other hand, the design guidelines over there, they're also available on our StoughtonLandmarks.org website. Design guidelines are laid out there if people want to look. These were, the design guidelines for the proposed district were developed specifically for the Stoughton downtown, and they make a distinction between historic, also known as contributing, and non-historic, also known as non-contributing buildings. The establishment of the downtown historic district will create a uniform process and a uniform set of design guidelines for all downtown buildings. Next slide, please. Frequently asked question number 2 is, why is the Landmarks Commission proposing making the downtown a local historic district? Well, one reason, as Peggy was saying, is it's our job. It's part of the Landmarks Commission's charge under the city's historical preservation ordinance. 2 of the goals of this ordinance perhaps say it best. to safeguard our historical and cultural heritage, and to promote the use of local landmarks and local historic districts for the education, aesthetic pleasure, and welfare of the city's people. But it's also because it's important to really recognize what we have here. And what we have here is an historic downtown that is an absolute gem. It's rare and should not be taken for granted. Along with keeping these buildings occupied and relevant, a local historic district is one of the best tools the city has to protect this gem. The second question on this page is, what are the benefits of establishing a local historic district downtown? Well, it manages changes to the downtown through a comprehensive process rather than the piecemeal approach we use today of individual landmarks combined with a design overlay process. It helps connect downtown building owners to resources needed to plan and finance building improvements while preserving the historic character of Stoughton's downtown. It also allows the Landmarks Commission to do what it does best, historic buildings. And it frees up the Plan Commission to do what it does best, other building projects, plan development, etc. So next slide, please. Does this change take power from elected officials and hand it over to a commission of appointees? No. Proposed exterior changes to buildings in the Downtown Design Overlay District are currently reviewed by one of two city commissions, the Plan Commission or the Landmarks Commission. By statute, the Landmarks Commission has one elected city council member. The Plan Commission has 3 elected city council members, plus the mayor. Unlike the Plan Commission, by statute, the Landmarks Commission has members that are competent and informed in the historical, architectural, and cultural traditions of the city. With the establishment of the historic downtown district, all reviews for buildings in the district would be done by the Landmarks Commission. However, all decisions of the Landmarks Commission can be appealed to the City Council. Designating a district does not change this. I also am reminded of an anecdote here. I had been discussing the difference between local landmarks and being on the National Register with a local realtor, Heather Beckstrom of Lindsay Gallagher and Associates. This is kind of probably one of the most common questions we get is, what is the difference between a local landmark and properties that are on the National Register? It seems like it's something that comes up quite often. And I was trying to explain the difference, and I finally referred her to our website, stoughtonlandmarks.org, and she was super impressed with it. In fact, I wrote down what she said. It kind of made my day. She said, "This website is amazing. I wanted to take some time to explore the website, and I'm so glad I did. I'm going to share with my team at our meeting tomorrow. I can't believe I've never run across this page before. All of my questions were answered. It's so clear and easy to use. We can use the descriptions for the historic districts to help develop our listings too. I really appreciate your taking the time to send this." But I just wanted to throw that in there to say that, it's not like we're just a bunch of bureaucrats. That we really do try and go the extra mile to help people and try and inform them when they have questions. So, next slide, please. Why should we trust the judgment of Landmarks Commission members when it comes to design reviews downtown? Well, let me count the ways, I'm tempted to say. The Landmarks Commission members are mayoral appointees who collectively have 70-plus years of experience with design reviews of historic buildings. We possess pertinent skills in historic preservation, and we're well-versed in how to make building improvements or additions that satisfy economic needs without destroying the historic character of a building. We collaborate and we seek solutions. We regularly attend training sessions to learn more about tax credit programs, design reviews, economic benefits, and the environmental impact of historic preservation, etc. I also think it's important to, I'm not one to toot our horn or anything like that, but the Landmarks Commission gets things done, and I think it has an impressive track record. We've won numerous grants over many years. We've nominated and added 5 historic districts to the National Register. We've created walking tours for these historic districts. We've created an impressive StoughtonLandmarks.org website that I referred to earlier. We've created design guidelines for historic neighborhood districts. We've created historicstoughton.org and the local historic downtown district information webpage. And we created a comprehensive set of design guidelines, which we've referred to before, for the proposed local historic district. And one more thing, our facade mini grant program has been super successful. We've made approximately 23 awards over the previous 6 years, and the average is only about $1,800, but you'd be surprised, that's a pretty big incentive for someone who wants to fix up a local landmark building. We are also unpaid volunteers. We take our roles seriously. We are like a team of experienced consultants who provide guidance for free. We serve no special interests. The Commission is simply following their charge as defined in the Historical Preservation Ordinance to safeguard the city's historical and cultural heritage. Next slide, please. Is work on non-historic resources in a local historic district reviewed by the Commission? Yes. The Commission reviews all work to the exterior of all resources in the district. A non-historic, or in other words, non-contributing resource is one that is less than 50 years old or a building that is over 50 years old that has lost its integrity. The Commission applies the same standards to all resources in the district. Typically, because historic material does not exist or has been lost, when the Commission reviews work on non-historic buildings, is looking at issues like size, massing, scale, placement, materials, and design compatibility to determine how these affect the adjacent resources in the district overall. Next slide, please. What happens if a property owner completes work that violates the Landmarks Ordinance? Well, the Landmarks Commission works to ensure there is a proper record. If the work is denied, the project goes through the city's established process for ordinance violation. The process is no different than for any other municipal ordinance violation. Next slide, please. Will local historic designation hurt my property values? No. Several states across the country, including Michigan, Texas, Georgia, Wisconsin, and Virginia, have conducted studies comparing property values in a designated local historic district to the property values in a comparable non-designated district. The results are consistent. Property values don't decrease in designated districts. They sometimes remain the same, but more typically, they increase, sometimes significantly. Local historic designation is regarded as a protection on the investments made to properties in the district. In other words, my property will not go down due to a bad design decision on a neighbor made about their building. Because reviewing work against consistent standards stabilizes the neighborhood, historic districts become desirable locations and resale values also increase. Next slide, please. Our downtown is the heart and soul of our community. I could probably go on and list many more benefits of having a local historic district downtown, like the ones you see on the screen here. But I think what I want to say is that our downtown is so much more than a collection of businesses and services, although it is also that. Looking at the big picture, it is very much an entity unto itself. It's the heartbeat of the community. And it's also a very special historic gem that with some guidance and vision has managed to survive the ravages of time relatively intact, unlike a lot of other downtowns in the state and in the country. And it appears to be thriving. And it's owned by us all to an extent. People are drawn to it. I know Janet and I were, just like so many others. And even 40 years ago, when there were still power lines draped along Main Street and the downtown looked scruffier than it does now, you could still see the beauty and the potential. And I think most of us are proud of the way it looks today. But we know it's also fragile. It needs nurturing and attention. It wouldn't take much for it to slowly lose its luster. In creating the downtown design guidelines and in nominating that it become a local historic district, the Landmarks Commission is doing our part, but also doing what we have been charged with doing by our ordinance to ensure its vitality and integrity. But it's also because we really care about our downtown. We want it to continue to thrive, to maintain its integrity, and draw people like it does today. And creating a local historic is one of the best tools we have to ensure that. We hope that you will agree. And now, if there are questions, or if you want to do that later, that's fine too.
We can certainly do that now. Are there any questions or comments from elders?
I guess I just want to follow up with one of the questions from the community members is, how did you determine, and maybe that was in your report and I just forgot because I read it, but, you know, I read a lot of things. The boundaries, you know, how come it wasn't extended past to the youth center and all the way to Page? What was the significance of what your boundaries?
As I recall, I think that came up, and I know there was discussion about it, but I think at that time, I'm not sure that we had the Depot Hill Historic District when we were discussing this. I can't remember exactly. Was it listed? Okay. But it was also because those buildings, two things. 3 of those buildings are already local landmarks, the 2 depots and the Lageray. And also, those buildings are part of what's considered transportation-related part of the district, whereas the rest of it is all like not that. And so I think there was a lot of discussion about it, and in some ways, I wasn't necessarily in favor of the way it came out, but that's the way it came out. I believe it could be amended at some point down the road, but that's what we came up with at the time. Is that?
I agree. There was a lot of discussion about the boundary. And part of the discussion was like around the river. Well, I think these property owners would be surprised to think that they're not actually part of the downtown. Same with the boundary on the other end. But the work that was presented to us was making the case that with so many non-contributing buildings, it was better to have a tighter boundary that excludes sort of a concentration of non-contributing or newer buildings, which is what you have on the other side of the river. There's really, I think, one building on that side of the river that's historic that hasn't been altered. So like the little building, the Queen Anne building on the river is new. It's not historic. And then there are others, you know, they're new or non-contributing. So that was one of the reasons that was presented to us, that it was better to have a tighter district boundary so that there weren't all these sort of extraneous non-contributing buildings in the district. But as we've said numerous times, there was a lot of discussion about this. And so I think that if we were asked to revisit the boundary question, I mean, it's not ideal, but I think that we would revisit the boundary question. You know,
It has to be made in district first.
well, 6 of 1.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was a lot of discussion about that.
So I just want to follow up on that. So you mentioned that there's a lot of non-contributing buildings. You're looking at doing a historic district. Was there discussion about trying to have more individual properties designated as a local landmark?
Well, that's what we've been doing for the last 20 years or more. We've been individually designating local properties, and it's a very slow process. And frankly, I just think it's time, you know, the longer you proceed like that, the bigger chance you have for chinks to occur and changes to occur, because there will be so many that aren't local landmarks, so.
Because, you know, I guess if I own a building downtown, I could choose to become a local landmark. I think that's true, isn't it? And I think that I would want to personally make that decision for myself. I wouldn't want the city council or the landmarks making that decision for me. So that's why I've kind of I've had some concerns about this all along. You talked a little bit at the beginning about some of the benefits of being a landmark, historical tax credits. My understanding is if you're in the overlay district, those tax credits are available already.
It's not about being in the overlay district, it's about being listed in the National Register of Historic Places.
Right. So I think that, to clarify that, if you're in the overlay district, you're already on the historical registry, you're already eligible for receiving tax credits. So you don't need to be in a historic district in order to receive those credits.
You don't have to be a local landmark to get those credits. Those credits are available not because it's an overlay, but because it's a district that's listed in the National Register of Historic Places.
Okay.
You do have to have a contributing building, and I think the chances of us, well, maybe it'll become evident, but a lot of people don't know about the tax credits. I don't know, for the Planning Commission, maybe that comes up all the time. I don't know. I do know for the Landmarks Commission, that is one of the benefits that we're always presenting to people that have a contributing building. So we're sure to present that. Plus, we have a website that has all of that laid out there, and it's very clear. And so we just think it's a bonus for.
Well, I think we're on the same page. I mean, I think if somebody comes to City Hall, we certainly, if they are purchasing a downtown building or a building that's in the historic district, we always refer them to landmarks.
Okay.
And we do the same thing at the Plan Commission as well, because we all want whoever buys the building to understand what the opportunities may be, whether it's they're eligible for tax credits or the mini grant, or we can help them apply for Main Street Badger Bounce Back money from the state, or federal ARPA money, or the revolving loan fund. So we cover all of that when people, even before they buy the building, they come in and they say, hey, I'm thinking about purchasing a building and it needs a lot of work. What are the opportunities? So we cover that, whether it's myself or through the planning department. And really the way it works is if somebody does have a downtown building and they need work done, they're going to the same person. They come in, they're going to Michael Stacy, whether it's a planning commission decision or a landmarks decision. So I don't really think it's broken or it's confusing and there's two sets of rules. There certainly is two ordinances, but at the end of the day, it's a pretty simple process. They pick up the phone, they get to our zoning. The zoning person says, yep, this is your building. It's this, you go to landmarks, or it's this, you go to planning. So I don't really think it's that complicated. So I just really wanted to point that out because I think that was overstated in your presentation. and I just want people to be clear. We do have plan commission members on the council as well, so I would like to hear from them. I have served on landmarks. I have a lot of respect for what you're doing and what you've done in the community, so don't get me wrong on that. But I do have some concerns about this. My preference would be, and I've said this when you started the process, is to individually encourage building owners to become a local landmark, and that really takes any confusion away altogether. And I still feel strongly that that's the way to go.
So I appreciate what you're saying about the information you provide to building owners, and I think that's important. But there is confusion. And, you know, it may be straightforward at City Hall, but it's not straight for people dealing with this. And you heard that tonight, that there is confusion about who they're talking to, who's reviewing a project. You know, we had someone make a public comment about a project that was denied by the Plan Commission, but the Landmarks Commission got the blame. These are for buildings that we never saw, projects we never saw.
You guys wrote a letter against public comment.
Oh, come on, this
So
isn't,
there is
got to
confusion.
maintain order.
There's confusion about who's doing what.
Well, we do, as a plan commission and as the chair, we do consult with the landmarks if there's an area of uncertainty or that needs clarification. So we appreciate having that collaboration. And I would hope, regardless of what happens here, that we'll continue that. So it's not that we're separate. I mean, we're in the same community. I think we have a lot of the same goals here. It's just a matter of how to get to them. So that's my preference, but I want to hear from others. Anybody on the council have any thoughts or questions?
I do. Rachel.
Go ahead.
Just to clarify, I have an understanding from what I've heard, but I just want to make sure my understanding is correct. So for existing building owners of a non-contributing building today that are not currently in a historical district, if they were to be included in the historical district as proposed, would they be required to take any immediate action or get any review of their building, or would they just be left alone?
No.
They would
just be left alone. We're not.
Well, they would have to have their plan approved by the Landmarks Commission.
If they wanted to, yeah, if they have a plan, but if they're not planning to do it.
Currently, they would have their plan reviewed by the Plan Commission because they're
Right.
non-contributing, they're not a local landmark. So there's no reason to have the experts look at a building that is not a landmark. But I would say there are a few buildings that I think were in your document that could become contributing that currently are not. And we also, when they come to City Hall or the Plan Commission, we also encourage them to consider making them back to a contributing building if they're able, eligible to be that. So I think that, like I said, I think there's a lot of common ground here, and we're working towards some of the same goals. Did you get your question answered, Rachel?
Yes.
Did you have any others?
No.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from council members? Alderperson Reeves?
So I'm currently serving as the council rep for the Landmarks Commission. And I really have been impressed with not only the depth of knowledge with it, which I think is evident, but the help that the Landmarks Commission has given when members come in. I own a home from 1905. I would call myself the non-contributing member of the committee. My role, I tend to offer, information about council process, but I've really been there to learn. And despite the fact that I own an old home, I had absolutely no idea that these resources exist. And it really, the interaction I've seen has been really it's great to know that there's a one-stop shop. I haven't seen barriers put up. And I think the one thing that, we need to pay attention to is that, because I came in when this process was ongoing, and so I really had no idea what I was getting into, so I really had to kind of figure it out, and I'm still learning some of it. But the one thing that has been made very clear is, and it's in the presentation, is that you don't have to make your building look like an historical building. In fact, that would, that's not the intention. And I thought walking in that may be the plan. But that, their guidance can make the buildings look compatible so that the vision that we see that many of us fell in love with, we take for granted because it's there. But I've also been in communities that have seen an unintentional, slow and subtle degradation, because not intentionally, but when someone is making a change, it doesn't seem like a big deal, but if you don't have the knowledge base to see how this is going to fit in the puzzle, all at once, many years later, it could look very, very different in a way that we weren't expecting. So I think the risk of not adopting is much greater than the risk of adopting this ordinance. These are not our adversarial, group of people. They're very helpful, and they have a willingness to help people find resources. And, despite what those of us in the city might like to believe, it's not easy to navigate. It's not easy to navigate our website. It's not easy to figure out who to talk to, because, when I was trying to get a fence, the ordinances were just like thrown at me like I knew what I was talking about, but I was on council. And I still didn't understand. So this would be very helpful, I think, to have a group of people who can walk you through the process. So that's my 10 cents.
Anybody else? Alderperson Mayeski?
Okay. Mayor stated one of the things was he didn't want experts from the Landmarks Commission looking at non-contributing buildings. He thought it would be a waste of their time. I find that wrong. The fact that because they do have knowledge in building and building construction, building structures, aesthetics, that they would be the people to go to. I sit on the Planning Commission and I have sat on Landmarks Commission. Take nothing away from Planning Commission. There's better expertise on landmarks right at the moment. Where it will be in the future, I don't know, but at this point in time, there is better expertise when it comes to a district of older buildings than it would be with sitting with the Planning Commission. Reiterate that nobody who owns a building within this proposed district will have to change anything. Even if they decide to do upgrades, they are not going to be asked to go back to a specific time period or whatever. They're just going to see, the commission will have to look at it for the appropriateness and how it melds with other buildings within that district. I see nothing wrong with that. People are afraid that they're going to be forced to become a landmark if they have a building that is contributing, but they're not a local landmark. I do not believe in the history of the Landmarks Commission that anybody has ever been forced to become a landmark, even though I believe our statutes allow that to happen. I don't believe anybody on landmarks would allow that to happen in that sense. And last, I do not want to have a repeat of what happened to properties within this proposed district that have been demolished in the past, when sadly we lost a couple of really good buildings because we did not have good policy, nor did we have good structure on how to help to save those buildings. And I believe with this new proposed district, that will happen.
Okay. Thank you. I guess I'll just comment on your last item. I think that, quite frankly, I think that the ordinance on demolition, as it's being proposed, is actually stronger in Chapter 78 than it is in Chapter 38, as it comes down to buildings being demoed. And under Chapter 78, they have to have a developer's agreement and financing in place to put up a new building before they demo an old one. So I think that the language is actually stronger, and we purposely updated that ordinance to prevent exactly what you're talking about. I certainly agree with you. We don't want to see buildings taken down, especially if a new one doesn't go back up. And we worked hard and spent a fair amount of money in order to update that ordinance, and we had a commissioner at the time that was a historical preservationist that helped us with the design guidelines. So I feel pretty good about the guidelines in the ordinance. Now, if they need to be updated, certainly, we could consider doing that as well. So, but I certainly understand where you're coming from. Alder Legaki, you have your hand up.
Thank you, Mayor. I like the comments of Alder Majewski. I think he raises some interesting points. I just would like to speak to the whole, as in, one of the things I remember as we were working on this years ago on landmarks was that we talked about other municipalities that didn't have local historic districts and ones that did. And we noticed a change in how the buildings were protected and preserved and allowed to continue. There are some parts of Janesville where there are beautiful, amazing old buildings, and the construction and the new construction has come up and has sort of taken away that district. And so I just want to speak to the whole that sure, perhaps the procedures that take place at City Hall and the good work that's done by Michael Stacy, but these buildings do need this protection. They do get taken down. I know that you're trying to protect, but speaking as the whole and being able to not continuing to have two different parties doing this, I do believe that expertise is on landmarks and would be true to the planning commission ideals around non-contributing, but I want to protect the whole. Our downtown is a gem, and this is a mistake to not pass this ordinance.
All right, any comments from any other alders? Alderperson Caravello, you have a building downtown, don't you?
Yeah, I have a little history with buildings downtown. I owned an old building downtown that became a hole in the ground for a while and was replaced by something that didn't quite keep the historic character, I would say. I mean, I guess you kind of have to look at the building where my building was. That was on the 100 block, the odd 100 block of West Main Street. And it was replaced by a building that isn't completely out of place, but it seems kind of off when you look at it, basically. So I would like to, and I currently own a building downtown that is a non-contributing building. Unfortunately, I wish it was actually, because the original front was very interesting. I also own another building downtown, which is not on Main Street, where my business is. But I think it is very important to preserve the historic character of downtown, and I think it's part of what makes Stoughton special. And I think the expertise on landmarks, which is there by municipal ordinance, to have that expertise on that commission is very important, and I think it would be a good idea to approve this.
Okay. Any other comments from others?
We'll add one.
Schumacher, you have one.
Also being on the plan commission, I know we've gotten stuck several times when we're looking at remodels and such of some of the downtown buildings, and we get stuck in there of following what guidelines and that we have set out in there, and then some of the things end up being a little bit more subjective than we would like them to be, and we've gotten stuck in that a few times. I think that definitely having the expertise of people whom do building restorations, I think is an easier way to go about that, and probably a better way to go about it. It would take a lot of subjectivity out of decision-making for downtown buildings.
Okay. Alderperson Venegas?
It sounds like there's still a way for people owning a non-contributing building, if they were to do a renovation and that go through a historic district landmarks commission and be asked to do certain things, they would still have a way to, contest that coming to, I think it sounded like they would come to council or, somehow escalate that. So if people are concerned, like the people that talked about opposing it, that own buildings, it sounds like there's still a path that if the Landmarks Commission gave some type of instruction that they didn't agree with, that there would be some additional review that could be done by council or have it worked through that way. So
That's right.
Yeah, I believe you're correct. Attorney Dragney, can you comment on that?
Hello. Well, I haven't looked at Chapter 38 recently to see what it says specifically. I would say that as a general rule, if any committee or body that is charged with making decisions under the ordinance makes a decision that someone believes was unlawful, there is a mechanism available for that decision to be reviewed. I just don't recall whether it is city council or another process. But the point there is, review where the person believes that the decision was unlawful. So long as if this historic district is created, so long as the Landmarks Commission is applying the guidelines correctly and following the law, then that decision should ultimately stand.
Okay. Just one follow-up, as long as we have you on the mic. If there was an effort to extend the boundary, would that have to go through the same type of public hearing process?
You mean if the historic district is approved and then later there's a desire to extend the boundary of that?
Yeah. What would the process?
Yeah, they would have to go through the same process, I believe, to extend the boundary as is required to create the district in the first place.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Can I make a comment, please, about?
Sure, yep. Yeah, just pull the mic over so we can hear you.
Sorry. Review of denials.
Yep.
All appeals go. Our ordinance requires an appeal process. State law requires our ordinance to have an appeals process. Our ordinance meets state law. We have an appeals process. So just to clarify that, we have an appeals process. It's required by state law. We have it.
Okay. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I read that in there. That process, Matt, would that be a legislative process, or would that be a quasi-judicial? Do you know?
So at this point, our ordinance says that appeals go to city council. Many communities have an option where appeals go to court. When we were revising our ordinance, Attorney Dragney helped us with our language and decided that, because our old version of the ordinance also had appeals go to city council, and so we just kept it that way. But there are some communities where appeals do go directly to court. So
what would that process look like, Matt? I mean,
Yeah,
it's a
so
worst-case
again,
scenario, we hope it
so
don't go
I'll
there.
take Peggy's word for it, because that the current ordinance provides for appeal to the city council. I haven't looked at that recently, but let's assume that's correct.
It is.
Then the council's job under those circumstances should be to review the record of the proceedings at the Landmarks Commission, to review the decision that was made, and to determine whether the decision was made correctly. I think that's likely the case. I think it's unlikely that the ordinance is set up to give the council what's called a de novo review, meaning, you know, you get to start over and make whatever decision you want based on whatever new record is created in front of the city council. But again, I haven't looked at the ordinance in preparation for this meeting, so that's my best guess as to what the process would be.
Okay. Well, I think that's something you can look at between now and the next meeting then. Does anybody else have any questions or comments tonight? This is a first reading, so if there's something that pops up tonight or tomorrow or the next day, you can certainly email them to us. I know Director Shields on here as well. Do you have any questions for him?
I have one point overall that I just want to see if I can get a little more information with. How many buildings currently, in estimate, does Landmark Commission basically oversee with many of these ordinance guidances?
We have 32 local landmarks, 14 of which are in the downtown.
14 of which are downtown. And the new expanded
I think it adds,
oversight would be how many new buildings?
I think it would add 45.
So I think in addition to changing the guidelines and creating this district, we also then likely will need to discuss if 45 is enough of an expansion, how does Landmark Commission work with its current structure? Because that's over doubling the workload, right? Of how many buildings, how many requests, including the non-contributing buildings that'll be added in. So I don't know if that's a worry of like, you have a lot more on your plate with this change.
Well, it's not like we get, it's not like they regularly come 2 a month or something like that. It's pretty erratic, but you're right. We'll probably have a bigger workload, but we welcome that because we think it's the way to go.
And I think you have 90 days to review them. Is that?
Yeah.
I thought you said you got them back in 60
Usually
days.
it's not that long.
Yeah, I think if you have up to 90 days, otherwise it's automatically approved, is I believe what I read in there.
No, I said 60.
I don't.
In the new ordinance,
I'd have to
it was
look at
60
that.
days.
Was it
Regularly, we review every couple
Can't hear on the phone here.
I'm sorry. Just trying to think off the top of my head, we probably review 2 or so COAs every few months. I mean, it's not a lot. So for all the local landmarks that we already have, we're just reviewing projects that come in. And it's not like every single one of those landmarks, comes in every month with a project. So you're right, it will increase the potential number of reviews. But, it's not like there's going to be this floodgates open and every single building is coming in for a permit,
I presume not.
So
But you're also adding non-contributing buildings, which may require more or have more requests than a contributing building will be, depending, because they're not used to some of those different standards. That might change the influx.
there are more contributing buildings than non-contributing buildings.
Yeah, I think the point is you'll be overseeing buildings that are currently going to the Plan Commission. And
There's really not that many.
it varies, but it's
No,
not like there's
let's
10 a
be-
month or
let's
anything
be
like
honest. I
that.
mean, in a year's time, how many? 15, if you're lucky? If you're lucky.
I don't know. We could
I'm
look
being-
that
I'm
up.
I'm being generous there.
Yeah, we can pull the permits and get
Yeah.
that information.
So if we do one a month, then I doubt it's even that.
And most of them, we do at the plan commission, or, you know, if you take the signs off, which I think is that still separate, the signage?
Sorry?
The signage for the downtown businesses? I think
Yeah,
you're more concerned about the location than the actual sign, right? Because
Right.
we have a separate ordinance for the sign.
Size of it, yeah.
Yeah, so we have the signage, and sometimes it's painting or awnings are the most common ones. It's not very often where we have a major renovation on a facade, for example. But we do have some here and there, but we can pull the permits and find out.
The point is that you're asking is, will it be this large overload for that commission? I don't believe it will be, because it will not be that significant of a workload upgrade.
Not any more than it would the plan commissioning, and the plan commission only, I mean,
Both groups meet once a month.
Yeah.
Worst case scenario, you'd meet more often, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I think once just.
Be a good problem to
months ago,
have.
We had 3 or 4 in one sitting in 1 month, but that was kind of unusual, but maybe that'll become more commonplace.
Okay.
It also tends to be seasonal. You know.
Yeah.
Sure.
So-
Nobody wants to do anything in the winter. I get that.
All right. Any other questions or comments?
I have one.
Okay, I have Alder Venegas and then Caravella.
I would just encourage, or I'd like to hear from anyone, not right now, but at the next hearing or next public comment, if there's specific requirements for non-contributing buildings that they see as like specific examples in the ordinance of what they would need to upgrade to that they're concerned about. Otherwise, to me, it sounds like they're gonna, they'll be left alone unless they want to do an update. And then I would just ask anyone opposing to review in detail the details, and if there's specific concerns with the requirements for non-conforming buildings, to bring those up so that they can be looked at. That's all.
Alder Caravella?
This just popped into my head as more of a general landmarks commission question as opposed to relating directly to this. So I think it's appropriate to ask this, but in the presentation, there's the list of everybody that is expertise in their various areas, which is awesome that we have that in town.
Yeah, I'll talk to her.
But maintaining that, going into is there a mechanism at landmarks that, I mean, aside from that it's a municipal ordinance to have folks with this experience, you guys have your replacements picked out?
Well, the mayor's prerogative.
So it's the mayor's job.
We actually do work on that. We are always sort of strategizing about, well, what if we have a vacancy? Do we have, and we did that recently. We had a vacancy and we recruited Dave, who's a master mason, and he's a perfect addition to the Landmarks Commission. You're right, there's specialized expertise, and there isn't a guarantee, that those same sort of areas of expertise will be represented forever. But the idea is that there are people in this community who have expertise, and so it's just a matter of identifying them and asking them to serve on the commission, or putting out a notice that we're looking for a commission member with this type of expertise. And, we've been able to keep the commission, I was going to say staffed, but we're not staffed, but, with qualified commission members. So it is a challenge for some communities. But, you know, I think we're probably close enough to Madison that there are a lot of people who have this expertise who live here. And this community has also had a very long history of people who work at the State Historic Preservation Office. They move here. They move here. And those people have served on the commission. Joe DeRose is one example of someone who served on the commission for many, many, many years. We have, you know, 2 current members. So there's a lot of opportunity for qualified members.
Yeah.
And we did have a preservation architect on our commission that lived just outside of town, and that was reviewed, and it didn't violate any of our city ordinances to have a commission member who didn't live in the city limits. So that was a preservation architect who was on the commission for a while. So we don't prefer to go that route, but we certainly didn't want to turn away a preservation architect from the commission. So we do work toward those goals.
Yep. Thank you. So just to correct myself, we looked it up. It is 60 days for approval. It's not. It is 60. Yeah, we checked the ordinance and the proposal, and they're the same.
Okay, thank you. We generally get it as soon as they come in. We
Yeah,
generally have
I mean, the biggest challenge is if the application comes in like the day after you have a meeting.
Yeah.
Because then potentially you're 30 days into it.
We have done that at times though too,
Yeah.
where it's like an emergency and so we'll have a special meeting.
I think I was at some of them meetings. But we always got it done, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that'll happen. It looks like city attorney has his hand up.
Yeah, just 2 things. I did have a chance to look at the ordinances while this discussion has been ongoing. And appeals are to the city council. The city council would need to apply the same standards in the ordinance that the Landmarks Commission is subject to. It does not indicate one way or the other whether the council would have the authority to take additional testimony and evidence in the context of an appeal. So I think the council would likely have the discretion to do that if it chose to, but because the ordinance is silent on that. And then lastly, with respect to the last discussion about the composition of the commission, the language is a little different than almost anything else I see in the city, in that the members the appointment is to be by the mayor, subject to council confirmation, but it says that, it looks to me like the mayor's appointees have to be based upon recommendations from the Landmarks Commission, which is different from, you know, any other committee or commission that we have.
That's been the practice, and I think it's served us well. All right, my screen is doing weird things tonight, so apologize for that. Is there anything, Director Shield, did you have anything on this topic before we move on to the next?
No, certainly our office does provide staff support to the Landmarks Commission. As was mentioned, Zoning Administrator Michael Stacy is the principal staff person to that, and he provides staff support along with myself to the Plan Commission as well. So we are in tune with the projects, whether they go to the Plan Commission or the Landmarks Commission.
Okay. All right. Anything else? We had enough for tonight. It's a first reading. It'll be back. We appreciate the presentation and your availability to answer questions. If anything else comes up, you can either email us at City Hall or you can email the Landmarks folks directly if you have questions, and we'll see you at the next meeting.
Thank you for your time.
You bet.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay. So that'll take us to our consent agenda, and there are 4 items in the consent agenda. I would entertain a motion to approve it.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Reeves, a second by Jensen. Would anybody like anything acted on separately on the consent agenda?
Mayor, I got one edit for the council April 18th reorg minutes in Resolution 68, 2023. That has Alder Payton listed as District 4 when he should be as District 1.
Okay. Not unless he moved.
Makes sense to me.
You didn't move, did you?
Nope.
All right. Did you catch that, Candy?
Yes, I have it, thank you.
Okay, great. Okay, any other questions or comments on the consent agenda? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Are there any opposed? That motion carries. All right, old business. Ordinance 6 of, or item number 6, ordinance 10 of 2023 is from the Plan Commission for second reading. Alderperson Carabello.
Yes, thank you. This is the second reading of ordinance 10 of 2023, an ordinance to amend the comprehensive plan of the city of Stoughton, and I so move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by President Hirsch. Alderperson Carabello.
And this passed Plan Commission 7-0 April 10th meeting, and this is in regards to the comprehensive plan amendment for the southeast corner of Highway 51 and County Highway B, which formerly we referred to as the Linderud property, and now we are referring to it as the Stoughton Trailers development.
All right. Anything you want to add, Director Shield?
Certainly I can elaborate, but you've hit the nail on the head. This is the area that was formerly known as the Leonard Detailed Neighborhood Plan that was put in place for that area. The comprehensive plan amendment is removing that component, modifying the boundaries slightly related to the land use within that area, and making the narrative changes that are contained in Exhibit A. This on your screen is the land use as proposed for this area. The one that was just on your screen was the former land use designations for that area of the comprehensive plan in the past. If this moves forward, the narrative changes are outlined within this exhibit that would be made throughout the comprehensive plan document, as well as the additional map changes that were depicted here on map 6A, 6B, 6C, as well as the transportation map on map 9. So those modifications would be made to the comprehensive plan amendment document.
All right. Alderperson Majewski.
I would like to possibly...
Whoa.
Interesting. Did you break it, Greg?
Broke the new table?
Can't take you anywhere.
That's not me.
Thanks for the seat assignment.
I think it was a joint, the only joint effort.
File a claim on that.
Anyway, as part of this requested change, they did change the right-of-way for from 100 feet to 80 feet, and I would like to have that struck and be kept at 100 feet. I believe that by keeping the right-of-way at 100 feet for the basically the main thoroughfare through this area, it gives the city more latitude in how to move traffic, how to give better safety for pedestrians on a busy street, allow for 10-foot trails where 80 feet will not do that, and we've had 80 feet in the past before. We've had it going through the KPW works, and we have some mighty small terraces.
Okay, so just to be clear, which particular road are you referring to?
It is,
It's depicted on the illustration here on the screen at this point.
It's
from 51 north to County Highway B.
So it's the white road or the green one?
It's this corridor.
Okay.
The white segment.
Does everybody see that?
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to make sure we know what we're talking about. All right, so do you see any issues with that, Rodney?
Well, the development design concepts have been utilizing the 80-foot corridor at this point. The 80-foot wide corridor is comparable to what we have for a right-of-way corridor on Roby Road, where we have sidewalks on both sides of the street, and we have parking on both sides of the street, and we have a terrace width of about 13 feet. If we go to a 100-foot wide corridor, obviously you have the opportunity to do some additional items, but you're looking at a complete street design there. You may or may not need that entire real estate to fit what's desired within that 100-foot corridor for that area.
I totally disagree with that because of the fact that we don't know what the future will hold. This gives us an opportunity to have some extra latitude on how to do redesign. Right now, the roads have not been designed yet, so we can plan accordingly. We can add more buffer between pedestrian and vehicle traffic. We have better latitude with placement of utilities. It just gives us a lot more room to maneuver. Because we had standard in the past, I don't believe that standard is correct anymore for what we need in the future.
Would that affect the stormwater or anything like that, Rodney?
Well, in theory, it certainly would if there's additional impervious area created as a part of that right-of-way component. Without a design that indicates you'd have 4 lanes of traffic or what you may have there, I don't know if that's what you'll end up with or not.
It may be that you add more green space into it and you have less impervious surface because you have a wider boulevard.
Okay, so,
Anyway,
are you offering an amendment, or what do you want to do?
Offering an amendment to strike the 80 feet and return, just strike the 80 feet and leave it as the 100 foot as was originally proposed.
All right, is there a second for that?
I'll second it.
Second by Caravello. It looks like Attorney Dregney has his hand up.
Yeah, I just was going to add that, so this is a comprehensive plan. So if it says, the actual final judgment about the width of the right-of-way, I think would be made during the planning process. And so if, for example, this amendment is approved and it says 100, that doesn't mean that the council couldn't later approve something that is narrower than 100, because the consistency requirement with respect to comprehensive plans doesn't require that you specifically follow that width designation when you're later approving a plat. I think I guess the idea here is to at least give the best planning direction that you're able to give at this stage about what width of right-of-way may be needed there. So I guess the point is this isn't locked in stone either way, I don't think.
Yeah, I would think that if that's the intent during the platting, the developer might want to appreciate knowing now versus later.
Right, so it would be better to start with the 100, and then if they come and they want a conditional use to narrow it, it's easier than to go the other way around.
Does that rationale work for you guys, Rodney or Matt? Does that sound right?
I didn't quite catch that.
I think the analogy is if we ask for it now and decide later to do something less than that, it'll be easier to have that conversation than to go from 80 to 100, for example, later during the planning process. Makes sense?
I expect there's some logic to that. I guess it sounds like we're not certain at this stage what is needed, so it might even be better to say something like 80 to 100, or, to indicate that, unless we know what the appropriate width is at this point.
Well, the amendment's for 100, and I think Tom is going to want to stay with that for now. As we get closer to the plating, they can certainly make a case for something less than that, or we can determine what we think we'd do with the extra 20 if that's the direction the council wants to go. At least that's what I'm seeing in the room here, unless somebody else has other thoughts. Okay, so we have an amendment on the table. All in favor of the amendment, say aye.
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 Aye. And any opposed? That motion carries. So that takes us to the original motion as amended. Is there any more discussion on the comprehensive plan update? Hearing and seeing none, then all in favor of the comprehensive plan as amended, say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? None opposed, that motion carries. Next item is coming from Public Safety. Alderperson Jensen, I think you're still officially the chair, right?
Not really, but I'll do it.
Well, we meet tomorrow night, so we haven't
All right, yeah.
reorganized yet, so
We'll see,
it's
we'll
gonna
see
be
what
you.
happens.
We'll have to figure out who's gonna do the Park and Rec one.
We'll see what happens. I'll handle it.
All right, go ahead.
This is ordinance 12 of 2023 to revise section 50-4 of the Stoughton Municipal Code, chapter 50, relating to ordinances, offenses and miscellaneous provisions. And I would move for approval.
Is there a second?
Oh, excuse me, this is the first reading, is it not?
Oh, it is the
Oh, it
first
is-
reading, I'm sorry.
It is the first reading, yes.
Yep. Anything you want to explain about this one?
This is something that was brought to us by Attorney Brodkey. He noticed that we did not have any provisions in this chapter regarding graffiti, and that would be under state statute 943.017 as noted in the documents. And I think there's a note in the packet here. There's a note from him that covers his reasoning. So I think it's pretty self-explanatory.
Anything else you want to add, Attorney Dragan?
Yeah, I would simply add that we've had some cases where people have been cited and the most appropriate description and charge would appear to be graffiti under this statute, but it's not something available to the police officers when they're citing people now. So instead, they're having to cite for something different, such as criminal damage to property. And so we would recommend adopting the graffiti statute as part of our code so that the police officers and the prosecutors have that option available when that seems to be the most appropriate charge.
Okay. Any questions on this one? Otherwise, it'll be back at the next meeting. Hearing none. Next item is a first reading from Landmarks. Alderperson Reeves.
So ordinance 10 of, oops, no, I got the wrong one.
Ordinance 13.
Ordinance 13 of 2023, establishing a local historic downtown district. Landmark recommended approval 6-0, and this is a first reading.
Yeah, we discussed it at length earlier. Unless there's anything else, this will be back in 2 weeks. Next item is coming from Finance Committee. Alderperson Schumacher, you were reelected as chair here.
Was, yep. This is R65 2023, the resolution for the creation of an irrevocable fiduciary trust fund for Stoughton firefighters pension fund. So move.
Second.
Second by Reeves. Alderperson Schumacher.
This had come through finance unanimously, and the Firemen's Pension Board also voted unanimously to support this. This moves the the fund that was established for, or the fire pension fund, moves it from our Fund 243 into the irrevocable fiduciary. And this one covers it covers the volunteer firefighters as well. And Dave, you're working on drafting an investment policy regarding this one also.
That is correct. It's part of the kind of overall investment policy that we got to look at for the city, because when I was looking at that, and the city attorney has agreed, ours is definitely outdated and isn't following the current statutes. So we will get that updated as part of the process here. The other thing to point out is that we're also changing it, the name from the Firemen's Pension Board to the Firefighters Pension Board.
Did we change the police, didn't you do that for the police not too long ago? Did you change their name to be more inclusive?
That wasn't anything I was involved with.
Did we do something with the pension of the police?
I don't remember.
Maybe it was
I have
just
to
a
ask
firefighter.
HR, but we can certainly do that. But we're trying to do that as we go through them, but we noticed, even the other day, I forgot what we were looking at, there was all male pronouns, which obviously is outdated, so we have work to do. Beyond outdated. Yeah, it's evolved way beyond that. So we do correct that as we come along it, but, you know, certainly this is one that they recognize that and made the change. Anything else on this one? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. And any opposed? None opposed, that motion carries. The next two are coming from Park and Rec. Who would like to honor, because Joyce was the chair. We're chairless.
Yeah, who is this vice chair?
I don't remember who the
Yeah,
vice.
Bill?
Might have, were you vice chair?
I don't know. Am I vice chair?
You are now.
I guess I am now. I could be.
Congratulations.
Great.
You could graduate to chair at the reorg.
Yeah, wonderful. Okay, so this is R66 of 2023, a resolution by the Common Council of the City of Stoughton to approve the lease agreement between the Friends of the Stoughton Area Youth Center and the city for the use of a passenger van, and I so move.
Second?
Go
Who was
ahead.
first?
No, he hasn't.
There you go. Who was it?
I guess it's me.
It's you? All right. We'll get you in the
right in
box score here.
Calculate a couple of time, increase over time.
That's right.
There you go. Anything you want to cover on this? I know Director Glynn's on here as well.
Well, just from, since I'm kind of, John wasn't expecting to read this, it looks like Stoughton Area Youth Center received a grant to purchase a passenger van, and the youth center is going to lease it from them, so that's cool.
Yep. You want to explain the arrangement, Dan? Are you still with us?
Yeah, I'm here. So, yeah, the Friends of the Stoughton Area Youth Center, they received a grant for $65,000 to purchase a passenger van. They were able to utilize state contract pricing and received a favorable deal on the van at $52,000 for the van, and then there's about $13,000 left over that could be used towards, future ongoing expenses for the van. The van's needed for the youth center primarily in the summertime to help transportation for students who they're not within walking distance of the youth center, and also like field trips to like the university and other surrounding things for summer field trips for the youth center students. So hopefully it will boost our summer attendance, which is lighter than our normal school year attendance. And give the kids an opportunity, to do outreach and other things.
All right. Any questions or comments on this one?
I was just curious if it's a renewal or if this is a new thing.
So this is a new lease, but I think it's set up for renewal every year for $1.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 And any opposed? None opposed, that motion carries. Next item, Park and Recreation, Alderperson Caravello.
Thank you. This one is R67 of 2023, authorizing the Director of Parks and Recreation apply for, I don't know if there's a two missing there, to apply for the 2023 Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources Stewardship Local Units of Government Federal Land and Water Conservation Fund and Recreational Trails Grant Program for Yahara Riverfront Development Phase 3 Mant Park Improvements, and I so move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by President Hirsch. Alderperson Caravello.
And since I'm out of breath, I'm just going to let Dan.
So this is the outdoor recreation grant program for the DNR, and the first phase of the Man Park Master Plan improvements, they all fit this grant program pretty well. So we're applying. This is to really authorize me to actually submit the grant application that's due May 1st. And the improvements, they're all in the first phase of the master plan that was approved by council, I think 3 years ago now.
All the way over here.
And this is in the CIP to be constructed next year.
Okay. So we applied for this in the past, but do you think you have a stronger application this time?
I mean, last year was just abnormal. We received, we were awarded $172,000 for this program last year for these improvements, and we decided, after discussing it with the mayor and the DNR staff and President Hirsch, we decided to turn down the grant funding and just reapply this year. The DNR staff said it was an abnormal year last year for waterfront projects, which typically rank very high, and they ate up a lot of the funding for it, this grant program. So it made sense to reapply this year, where hopefully there's less waterfront projects and our project will rank at the top instead of, even though we were funded just towards the lower funding part last year.
Okay. Any questions or comments?
Hopefully this is an online application. You don't have to write all that on the outside of the submission envelope.
Can you throw any more into that grant? Jeez.
Yeah, this is their language, so they have a template that they want you to use for the resolution.
Yeah. All right, any other questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? That motion carries. I entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All right, motion by Majewski, a second by Jensen. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? None opposed. Thank you. Have a good night.
This part really needs help.